Where legends breathe again. Eldmyth. From the shifting sands of time, a legend whispers. It is a tale not carved in stone, but woven from starlight and the deep, fertile silt of the Nile. It speaks of a name that echoed through temple halls and humble homes alike, a name that held the power of creation and the comfort of the grave. Isis. Who was this goddess, whose worship spanned millennia and empires, from the sun-scorched obelisks of ancient Egypt to the secretive cults of imperial Rome? She was the embodiment of 1,000 facets, the devoted wife, the fierce mother, the cunning sorceress, the queen of heaven itself. Her story is not a simple myth, but a complex tapestry of love, loss, and unwavering resilience. Imagine the scene. The first light of dawn kisses the waters of the primordial Nile, a ribbon of life cutting through a desert of golden silence. The air, cool and heavy with the scent of lotus and papyrus, stirs as the world holds its breath. This is the moment before creation, the stillness from which all things emerge. And in that stillness, the spirit of Isis already stirs, a potential waiting to be born. She is the promise of order from chaos, of life from death, of love that defies the very boundaries of the underworld. To understand her is to understand the heart of an entire civilization, to decipher the hopes and fears of a people who saw the divine in the annual flood, the loyalty of the dog star Sirius, and the protective embrace of a mother. So let us begin our journey not at a specific point in history, but in the realm of mythic consciousness, where the line between deity and natural force blurs, and the name of Isis is the first and last word in the great story of existence. To trace the origins of Isis is to delve into the very bedrock of Egyptian cosmology, to the Heliopolitan creation myth sung by priests in sun-drenched temples. Here in the beginning was only the dark, formless waters of none. From this nothingness, the self-created Atum emerged, and from him the first divine couple, Shu, god of air, and Tefnut, goddess of moisture. Their children were Geb, the earth, and Nut, the sky, locked in a perpetual, passionate embrace. But their father, Shu, the air, forced himself between them, lifting the star-studded body of Nut high above the prostrate form of Geb, creating the world we know. It was from this union of sky and earth that the second generation of gods was born: Osiris, the king; Isis, the throne-set, the chaotic desert storm; and Nephthys, the lady of the house. Isis's very name, Aset in the ancient tongue, means throne. She was the living embodiment of royal power, the seat from which a pharaoh's divine right to rule was drawn. Her earliest depictions show her not as a woman, but as an empty throne, a powerful symbol that the king derived his authority from her. Imagine a fragment of a carved relief from the Old Kingdom, the stone worn smooth by 4,000 years. You can still make out the shape, the elegant curve of the seat, the hieroglyph for her name carved beside it. She was the power behind the crown, the stability of the kingdom itself. This was her primary, foundational role, the source of legitimacy and order, the throne upon which the rightful ruler, her brother-husband Osiris, would sit. As dynasties rose and fell, the worship of Isis evolved, absorbing local cults and expanding her dominion. She became the great of magic, her cunning and will a match for any god. She was the mother of all, the protector of children and the dead. Her iconography became rich and complex. She was most often depicted as a beautiful woman wearing a throne as her headdress, a symbol of her primordial power. Later, she was shown with the solar disk between cow's horns, borrowed from the goddess Hathor, emphasizing her maternal, nurturing aspects. In her hands, she held the Ankh, the key of life, and a papyrus scepter, signifying her link to the lush delta. She was the sister-wife to Osiris, the god of fertility and the afterlife, and their love story became the central drama of Egyptian religion. But her most profound role was that of mother to Horus, the falcon-headed sky god. She was the divine mother, protecting the infant Horus in the marshes of the delta from snakes, scorpions, and the machinations of his murderous uncle, Set. This image, of Isis nursing the child Horus on her lap, would become one of the most enduring in all of art, a precursor to the Christian iconography of the Madonna and Child. Temples dedicated to her, like the magnificent complex on the island of Philae, became centers of pilgrimage and healing, where the sick and the heartbroken would come to seek the intercession of the goddess who knew suffering, who had triumphed over death itself through love and magic. The rituals dedicated to Isis were as multifaceted as the goddess herself. They ranged from grand, state-sponsored festivals to intimate, personal devotions. Imagine the great festival of the navigation of Isis, a dazzling spectacle of light and sound. The sacred bark, a gleaming model boat carrying her statue, would be processed from the temple by shaven-headed priests in white linen robes. They would chant her hymns to the rhythmic beat of the sistrum, a sacred rattle whose sound was said to ward off chaotic forces. The air would be thick with the smell of Kaiphai incense, a complex blend of 16 ingredients including honey, wine, myrrh, and juniper, rising in sweet, coiling clouds towards the heavens. The crowds lining the Nile would raise their voices in ecstatic praise, throwing flower petals into the path of the goddess. But for the common people, worship was more personal. They would leave small terracotta statues of Isis in their homes, praying for protection, fertility, or a safe childbirth. They would wear amulets of her knot, the tayet, often made of red jasper, believing it held the power of her blood and her magical protection. At the temple, a pilgrim might spend the night in an incubation chamber, hoping for a healing dream or a vision of the goddess herself, who was known to appear to her devotees, offering comfort and cryptic guidance in their sleep. The central, defining myth of Isis is the story of Osiris, a tale of love, betrayal, and the birth of the afterlife. Osiris, the wise and good king, brought civilization to Egypt, teaching its people agriculture and laws. His reign was a golden age. But his brother Set, the god of chaos, violence, and the barren desert, grew envious. In a grand feasting hall adorned with lapis lazuli and gold, Set unveiled a magnificent chest, crafted precisely to Osiris's measurements. As a game, he promised the chest to whomever it fit. One by one, the gods tried and failed. When the generous Osiris lay down inside it, the fit was perfect. In that instant, Set's accomplices slammed the lid shut, sealed it with molten lead, and threw the chest, now a sarcophagus, into the swirling currents of the Nile. The feast descended into chaos. The joyous music ceased, replaced by gasps of horror. Isis, upon hearing the news, let out a wail that echoed across the two lands. She tore her robes, cut off her beautiful hair, and began a desperate, relentless quest. Her love for her husband was the driving force that could not be extinguished. This was the beginning of her greatest trial, a journey that would test her magic, her wit, and her devotion to their absolute limits. Thus began Isis's long, sorrowful search. She wandered the length of Egypt, questioning everyone she met, fishermen, farmers, and children, her grief a palpable force around her. She learned that the chest had been carried out to the Great Green, the Mediterranean Sea, and had eventually washed ashore at the city of Byblos in distant Canaan. There, a magnificent tamarisk tree had grown around it, encasing the coffin within its trunk. The king of Byblos, unaware of the divine secret it held, had the tree cut down and used as a central pillar in his palace, marveling at its wondrous scent and beauty. Disguised as an old mortal woman, Isis journeyed to Byblos and sat by a well, where she befriended the queen's handmaidens. With her divine power, she bestowed upon them a fragrant aura. Intrigued, the queen summoned this mysterious woman to the palace to serve as a nurse for her infant son. Isis grew fond of the child and, in a desperate attempt to grant him immortality, she would place him in the palace's central fire each night to burn away his mortal parts, while she herself, in the form of a swallow, flew around the pillar containing Osiris, chirping a lament of heartbreaking sorrow. The queen, of course, eventually discovered the strange ritual of the fire and screamed in terror, breaking the magic. Isis then revealed her true, glorious divine form, shedding the old woman's disguise like a cocoon. Light emanated from her skin and the air hummed with power. The king and queen, terrified and awestruck, granted her anything she desired. She requested only the great pillar. With a command, she split the wood open, revealing the chest within. She embraced the pillar, her tears of joy mingling with the resin, and the sound of her weeping was both a release of long-pent sorrow and a song of triumph. She took the chest, now a sacred relic, and set sail back to Egypt, to the hidden marshes of the Delta, where she could be alone with her husband. In that secluded sanctuary, surrounded by the protective whispers of the papyrus reeds, she used her most potent magic. She fanned the chest with her wings, the breath of life, and combined her power with the lingering spirit of Osiris. It was here that she conceived their son, Horus, the Avenger, the future king of Egypt, the child who would one day challenge the usurper Set and reclaim his father's throne. But the wrath of Set was relentless. While hunting by the light of the full moon, he discovered the hidden sanctuary. He found the chest containing his brother's body, and in a fit of mad, jealous rage, he hacked the body of Osiris into 14 pieces, scattering them across the length and breadth of Egypt. He believed that by dismembering the body, he could destroy the god forever, preventing any chance of resurrection. When Isis returned to find the chest empty and the body gone, her grief was renewed, but it was now tempered with a steely, unwavering resolve. She would not be defeated. With her sister Nephthys and aided by the jackal-headed god Anubis, she embarked on a second, even more grueling quest. She traveled to every nome, every province in a great funerary bark, searching for the sacred fragments of her husband. Wherever a part was found, she and Nephthys would perform the rites of mourning, and a shrine would later be built, explaining why so many Egyptian cities claimed to be the burial place of a piece of Osiris. Legend tells that Isis recovered 13 of the 14 pieces. The final part, his phallus, had been consumed by a Nile fish, the Oxyrhynchus, and was lost forever. Undeterred, Isis used her profound knowledge of magic and ritual. She fashioned a replacement from gold and ebony, and with Nephthys and Anubis, she meticulously reassembled the body of Osiris. She wrapped him in the finest linen bandages, chanting the ancient spells of protection and preservation. In doing so, she and Anubis performed the first ever mummification, creating the ritual that would define the Egyptian quest for eternity. But her work was not done. Using her potent Heka, the fundamental magic of creation, she temporarily reanimated the body. She transformed into a kite, a bird of prey, and flew around him, her beating wings and haunting cries stirring the air with life. It was in this moment of ultimate magical working that Osiris was restored enough to speak, to impart his wisdom, and to formally legitimize their son, Horus, as his heir. Through her actions, Isis did not just save her husband. She fundamentally transformed the nature of death itself, turning it from a final end into a transitional state, a gateway to an afterlife of eternal fields of reeds. With Osiris established as the Lord of the Dead, the cosmic drama shifted to the next generation. The focus now turned to Horus, the son for whom Isis had fought so desperately. She raised him in the hidden, treacherous marshes of the Delta, protecting him from the ever-present threat of his uncle Set. She taught him the arts of war and kingship, but also the secrets of magic and diplomacy. When Horus came of age, he brought a case before the tribunal of the gods, the Ennead, to legally claim the throne of Egypt from the usurper Set. What followed was a legendary trial that lasted for 80 years, a battle of wits, magic, and brute force. Isis was her son's chief advocate, using her cunning and eloquence to outmaneuver Set at every turn. In one famous episode, Set challenged Horus to a race in stone ships, but Isis, seeing her son was about to lose, magically transformed herself into a sea monster and attacked Set's vessel. When Horus, in a fit of rage at her interference, beheaded her, the god Thoth, using his wisdom, replaced her head with that of a cow, a symbol of her ultimate, enduring power. This trial was not just a family squabble. It was the eternal struggle between order and chaos, between rightful kingship and despotism, and Isis was the unwavering force of order. The conflict culminated in a series of brutal battles. Horus and Set faced each other in direct combat, and in one ferocious encounter, Set managed to tear out Horus's left eye, the Eye of the Moon, Horus, in turn, castrated Set, symbolically breaking his chaotic generative power. But the wounded eye was not lost. It was the ever-resourceful Isis who recovered it. Through her healing arts and potent spells, she restored the eye, making it whole and powerful once more. This restored eye, the Wedget eye, became one of the most potent symbols in all of Egypt. It represented sacrifice, healing, and the restoration of order from chaos. When Horus later offered this healed eye to his resurrected father, Osiris, in the underworld, it became the ultimate symbol of filial piety and the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. The gods finally ruled in favor of Horus, granting him the kingship over the fertile black land of Egypt, while Set was relegated to the barren red land of the desert and the chaotic foreign lands beyond. Through her son's victory, Isis's long struggle was vindicated. Mad, the principle of cosmic order and justice, was restored, all thanks to the relentless devotion of a wife and mother. The power of Isis was not confined to the borders of Egypt. As trade and conquest spread Egyptian influence across the Mediterranean, so too did the worship of the great goddess. The Ptolemaic Greek rulers of Egypt syncretized her with their own deities, creating Isis Aphrodite, the goddess of love, and emphasizing her universal nature. Her cult spread to Rome, where it became, for a time, one of the most popular religions in the empire, even rivaling early Christianity. Her temples in Rome, Pompeii, and across Europe were not dark, secret places, but often beautiful, welcoming complexes. Initiation into her mysteries was a profound, personal experience, promising salvation and a direct encounter with the divine. The Roman writer Apuleius, in his novel The Golden Ass, describes a magnificent vision of the goddess during an initiation rite. I saw the sun gleam bright at dead of night. I approached close to the gods of the underworld and the gods of the upper world, stood near and worshipped them. This was the promise of Isis, a personal, emotional connection to a goddess who understood human suffering and offered hope beyond the grave. The legacy of Isis is imprinted deeply upon the canvas of Western art and culture. During the Renaissance, artists rediscovered classical myths, and Isis, often interpreted as a personification of nature, appeared in allegorical paintings. The image of Isis lactans, nursing Horus, directly influenced countless depictions of the Virgin Mary nursing the infant Jesus, a seamless transition of the archetype of the Divine Mother from one religion to another. In the modern era, she has been rediscovered by neo-pagans and spiritual seekers who see in her a powerful symbol of the feminine divine, of magic, and of self-reliant strength. She appears in fantasy literature, video games, and film, often as a sorceress or a queen, her name still carrying the weight of ancient mystery. The annual flooding of the Nile, which she was mythically responsible for causing with her tears for Osiris, is a timeless symbol of life springing from loss, a cycle that continues to inspire. So what is the enduring essence of Isis? She is not a distant, omnipotent figure, but a goddess deeply entwined with the human experience. She embodies the power of love that refuses to surrender to despair, the cunning intelligence that can outwit brute force, and the fierce, protective instinct of a mother. She is the weaver of spells and the weeper of tears that bring life to the land. Her story teaches that even in the face of utter desolation, the murder of a spouse, the dismemberment of a body, the constant threat to a child, there is a path forward through devotion, wisdom, and unwavering will. She transformed personal tragedy into cosmic triumph, creating the very framework for an afterlife and ensuring the continuity of kingship and order. The whisper of her name is the whisper of the papyrus reeds in the wind, the ripple of life-giving water, and the silent, steadfast promise that death does not have the final word. In a world that often feels chaotic, the myth of Isis remains a timeless testament to the power of love and magic to put the pieces of a shattered world back together, making it whole once more. Another legend fades, but the next awaits. Like this video, subscribe and continue the journey through myths.